Today we're talking about the drippy, chain-smoking, woman-loving, sorrow-hating and foot-job-maxing cook of the Straw Hat Pirates, Vinsmoke Sanji. More specifically, Sanji's gonna have a rough day, cause we're gonna force him to fight all of Luffy's major opponents. And it's not current Sanji fighting all these guys, cause the first part of this video would be rather boring. Instead, in this scenario, Luffy went for a snooze before each fight, and Sanji with whatever power level he had during that time has to deal with them. Meaning, Baratie Sanji has to fight Don Krieg, Whole Kick Sanji has to fight Katakuri, and so on. I'll be keeping count of the points as we go, so let's see if Sanji can win against Villain FC. In this world, Luffy does not find him at Baratie. Instead, he's been kidnapped by the Alvida pirates, because Alvida loved his soup too much and decided to steal him. Sanji is petrified by her not so amazing looks, so when Luffy arrives in a barrel, he sees it as a chance to get off her ship. After Luffy gets Kobe to insult Alvida, Sanji steps in to block her mace, but with a kick this time. This matchup will be no trouble for him. He easily finishes her off with a Mouton shot. The score is 1-0. The strange trio then make their way to Shell's town. They rescue Zoro, and this time Sanji fights against Morgan while Luffy and Zoro deal with the Marines. This would be a slightly harder fight for him than the previous. Morgan would likely successfully block some of his kicks, but I don't think he would damage him. Sanji's speed would likely quickly overwhelm him, and before long it's lights out for the Axe Boy. 2-0. Goodbye Kobe, good luck with the Marines, hello Orange Town, and Nami Swan. Luffy still arrives first on that bird, and Zoro still saves Nami from the Buggy pirates, but he's flanked by Sanji this time, who's immediately blown away by Nami. This time, Kabaji fires both Luffy and Zoro, cause I gave him some energy steroids, leading to Sanji fighting Buggy. Like most people, he would have a hard time figuring out how to deal with the clown's power, but I think kicks would fare a lot better than swords against the Chop fruit. And since Buggy doesn't really have any strength outside of his fruit power, Sanji would still send him flying. Maybe not as far as Luffy though. 3-0 to Vinsmoke. Syrup Village pits Sanji against Captain Kuro. This is his first extreme diff fight. Kuro's blinding speed and deadly claws push Sanji to his absolute limit, leaving him bloody and scarred. Sanji would barely manage to counter Kuro's pussy boot technique, yeah. It's really called that. Exploiting a brief opening to land a decisive shot for the hard-fought win. The score is 4-0, but Sanji is pushed harder than ever before. The crew then reach Baratie, and Sanji is back home in his eyes. But Luffy does not accept him leaving now, and has an easier time to convince him to officially join in this timeline. This time, he doesn't get battered by Pearl, the best character in One Piece. Instead, a one-on-one with the Don himself. This is another hard scrap for Sanji. Krieg has so many different types of weapons, and he would undoubtedly land a few solid hits on Sanji. So the question is, did Sanji have enough endurance back then to defeat Krieg while damaged? I think the answer is yes. This might seem odd since he got outmaneuvered by Jin in the same arc, but that was after he didn't defend himself against Pearl's attacks. Plus, Jin is an agile and quick opponent, unlike the bulky Krieg. I think he would find a way to break that shiny armor. Again, this would likely push him to his absolute limit, but the score is 5-0. Our boy is on a roll. We have arrived at our toughest opponent yet, Arlong. This time, Luffy stays underwater even longer, and Sanji is forced to deal with the racist fishman himself. In the real timeline, he won against Kurobi. You might argue that he struggled, but that was only underwater. Kurobi only landed a single punch on him above water, and when Sanji finally made it out of the pool, he effortlessly ended the fight. But Arlong's fighting versatility is so much greater compared to Kurobi or any of his crewmates. And when you look at Luffy's fight against him, he relied a lot on his Devil Fruit ability to dodge him. If they fought 10 times, maybe Sanji could win once, but I doubt it. Arlong has got this, mid to high drift, especially in Arlong Park, where he had access to water. 5-1. If you're having a good time, don't forget to like the video. Can we hit 700 likes? I've been trying to save up for this Pearl figure, so it would really help me. Next, we got the severely underrated Mr. Free. This guy toyed with people that later fought the Gorosei on seemingly even footing. He also managed to trap crew members, including Zoro, and that's not anyone. His wax was said to be as hard as steel, and Luffy needed help from the crew to beat him. So even though Sanji beat Mr. 2, I think he's taking the L against Mr. 3. 3. 5-2. Arriving at Drum Island, Sanji faces the sin of gluttony personified, Wapol. While Wapol's devil fruit has potential, his usage is pretty lackluster. His slow and often predictable attacks are no match for Sanji's speed. He would effortlessly dodge cannon fire and evade Wapol's attempts to consume him. With a single powerful kick to the jaw, he would send Wapol spinning. It's a solid mid-diff victory for Sanji. 6-2. Next up is our first warlord of the sea, Crocodile. And honestly, I could see arguments for both sides here. Water totally nerfed Crocodile, and you could argue that Sanji has a shot of winning if he made Crocodile pay for this weakness. Why don't he just dip his legs in some water and win that way? But it's not that easy. He would probably not know about this fact coming into the fight. And I also gotta mention that even Luffy failed to beat Crocodile 2 times before he finally beat him. And had he lost his plot armor on the way there, he probably would have died both times. But Crocodile chose to be nonchalant and lazy and just let him live. So under the perfect circumstances in which Sanji manages to nullify Crocodile's powers, he could win, but in any realistic scenario, Crocodile takes the win. 6-3. Damn Loverboy, you're gonna let them make a comeback like this? Let's set sail to Mocktown and Bellamy. And let's be real, even if I have a soft spot for him, the hyena didn't pose any real threat combat-wise. If Luffy could end him in one punch, I'd bet Sanji could do the same with 2 or 3 kicks. 7-3. And to piss off Bellamy even more, the next stop is the Sky Island of Skypiea. And we don't have to do much speculation against Enel, since we already have the canon answer. Enel beats him without needing much effort. Shout out Sanji though, who managed to gain aura even though he lost. His power is near impossible to deal with for a non-Haki user, unless you're Luffy, who just happened to be his natural counter. Enel does not have crazy fighting skills, but he doesn't need them, since he became a literal god after eating that fruit. 7-4. The villains are closing in. Luffy's next opponent was Blueno. In this scenario, however, Sanji was quicker and got to him first. Luffy used Gear 2 to defeat Blueno, but in reality I think he could have taken him out using only his base attacks. But since he was in a hurry, there was no reason for him to not use Gear 2. I believe that Sanji, now equipped with Diable Jambe, could deal with Blueno without much trouble. Looking at the different power levels of CP9, we see that Blueno sits at 820, whilst Yabra, who Sanji beat in the same arc, sits at more than double that, at over 2000. So this is a no-brainer really. Get out of here, Father Doorman. 8-4. CP9 doesn't end at Blueno. Next, Sanji would have to fight Lucci, whose power level nearly doubled that of Yabra's. This is a fight that Luffy nearly lost. If it wasn't for Usopp's clutch motivational speech, he likely wouldn't have come out on top. Now, Luffy was inexperienced using Gear 2, and he seemed to be overusing it during the fight, which tanked his stamina. So what we need to essentially answer is if Diable Jambe can match the speed of Gear 2 and the strength of Gear 3. I think it's closer than most people realize. Sanji is insanely quick. That's the whole reason he can reach the temperature required for the technique, and the power of his kicks shouldn't be understated either, as he was able to damage Yabra when he used Iron Body. But of course, Lucci has mastered that technique on another level. Overall, I don't think this would be an easy victory for Lucci as it may seem at first glance. Instead, it would be a hard-fought battle, with Lucci narrowly coming out on top. 8-5. Before the next one, I gotta mention that my dog is a pirate. For anyone new, her name is Nova and her bounty started at just 1 berry, but for every single subscriber, her bounty goes up by 1. Last time, her bounty sat at 333 berries, but she's been busy since. She recently visited Drum Island and caused some trouble. Thanks to that and you guys, her bounty is now at 691 berries. Hit that subscribe button and raise it even higher. The Sunny then moves on to the shadows of Thriller Bark, with Oars and the goat Gecko Moria. The goat is past his prime here though. In this timeline, we get Nightmare Sanji instead of Luffy, and in this scenario, Sanji gets helped by the other Strawhats just like Luffy did. Otherwise, this would be a straight loss. Sanji would have a harder time finishing off Oars since Luffy could cover such massive areas with Gear 3, but even base Sanji could deflect Oars attacks, so with hundreds of shadows, I see him throwing Oars around just like the Nightmare version of Luffy did. When Oars is done for, only the Master of Shadows is left to deal with, and just like the real timeline, he deploys his ultimate move, Shadows Asgard, absorbing 1000 shadows. To deal with this, you need attacks that are force-based, just like Luffy's. As an example, Zoro's sword attacks would not have done the job. Luckily, Sanji's attacks release an immense amount of pressure. It's really hard to say if the pressure is enough to get the shadows out of Moria, but looking at how his attacks basically destroyed Yabra, I'm leaning towards Sanji here. To be clear, Sanji would lose if he was alone here, but I wanted to give him the same conditions Luffy had, with the shadows and help from the crew, not including Luffy. And with that, I think Sanji could very narrowly win. The score is 9-5. Then we go through the Summit War Saga, and this time Sanji was teleported to Amazon Lily instead of Luffy. First of all, he would probably die of blood loss the second he woke up, but if we ignore that, Luffy fought the Boa sisters here, and even though Boa Marigold might not be Sanji's ideal woman, he still ain't gonna beat up a female. So the score is 9-6. Sanji then makes his way to Impel Down, and he beats the Minotaur. He might underestimate it at first, but it shouldn't be a very hard fight for him. So he gets a point back, 10-6. Once he goes deeper down in the prison, however, Magellan stands in his way, and there is no circumstance in which he wins this. He is just as cooked as Luffy was, 10-7. And that ends the pre-time skip section. Let's move on to one of Sanji's favorite places, Fishman Island. And let's be real for a second, Luffy could have destroyed Hody Jones very quickly, but that wouldn't have made a very interesting arc, and Oda also wanted to save Gear 4 for Dressrosa. We also saw that Zoro could overwhelm Hody and they were underwater, so this sorry excuse of a villain is no match for post-time skip Sanji either, no matter the drugs he takes. 11-7. It's looking like Sanji might win this. Moving on to Punk Hazard, Sanji needs to fight the mad child trafficker Caesar Clown, a Logia user made of gas. But this is also a post-time skip Sanji with greatly improved abilities, specifically Armament Haki, which is needed to beat this clown. One of Caesar's trump cards is his ability to remove oxygen to suffocate opponents. However, this tactic is really overrated against a fighter of Sanji's caliber. Any trained human can function perfectly for 30 to 60 seconds without oxygen. More than enough time for Sanji to close the distance and land real hits. We've seen him fight underwater before, implying a breath-holding ability far exceeding a minute. So considering all this, I think Sanji's got this. 12-7. Going forward, the enemies get real tough. Let's see if he can manage. Making our way to Dressrosa, we have a fight that we caught a glimpse of in the real story. Sanji versus Doflamingo. In their brief aerial clash, Sanji went all out, using Diablo Yanbei. Doflamingo, however, casually dodged his kicks and effortlessly blocked Sanji's strongest attack, though he admitted it was pretty powerful, before immediately gaining the upper hand with his strings. The fight ended with Doflamingo using his parasite technique to completely immobilize Sanji. This exchange proved that Sanji, even with his new abilities, such as Skywalk, he was decisively outmatched. While the fight occurred in the air, Doflamingo's overwhelming control of the situation made it clear that he would come out on top on land too. A loss for Sanji here makes the score 12-8. Next up, Sanji versus the Mochi Man himself, Katakuri. This would be an interesting fight, considering Katakuri is made of food, and Sanji likes to cook food. Maybe he would pull out some crazy cooking technique, nullifying Kata's power. I doubt that though. In my mind, Katakuri handed the win to Luffy, as their battle had a lot to do with psychology and not just physicality. I think Katakuri's fruit power and future sight would simply overwhelm Sanji, just like they did Luffy at first. However, Sanji wouldn't be able to bounce back in the same way. Without Sanji's awakened Germa powers, Katakuri has this one in the bag. 12-9. Now time for the final war against the big blue dragon, Kaido. And let's not beat around the bush. In a 1v1, Sanji gets cooked by Kaido, even with his exoskeleton. But to anyone who says he just bounced off the dragon without leaving a mark, nah, that's just slander. Sanji sadly wasn't on the rooftop. I feel your pain, Sanji fans. So we can't know for sure. But think about it. The Red Scabbards managed to cut Kaido. Killer, who by the way is one of the most underrated fighters in One Piece, damaged him with his sound blades. And Sanji's entire fighting style, especially with his new Ifrit Yanbei, is about bypassing armor and burning you from the inside out. The fight ends with Sanji on the floor, obviously, but not before he lands a solid, flanchet strike that makes the world's strongest creature grit his teeth and say, "That burns." The final score is 12-10, meaning Sanji is the winner. Let me know in the comments on which fights you disagree with me. And by the way, YouTube thinks this video is perfect for you, so why not give it a chance?